I wasn't going to do another video, but I still keep thinking back to those years ago with Christmas and just remembering how scary it was at that time and not knowing who to go to. So I really want to focus on oppression and possession today, which haven't gone too into detail with, but I feel like the activity gets so high around Christmas, demonic activity. I think that I get more cases of more people reaching out or more members reaching out for help around the holiday time, around Christmas time as we lead up to Christmas, than at any other time of the year. So someone may find this video or someone's family member may find this video, and I hope it is helpful to you. Now, the first thing to know is the difference between oppression and possession. I think that that's really important here. Oppression is if a spirit or a demonic entity is attached to you. And let me back up. There's evil spirits and then there's demons. Demons were never alive. They were never they're fallen angels. They're basically Satan and then all the other angels that left heaven and got cast into hell. Those are demons. Then there's also evil spirits. Evil spirits were human at one point, and they usually embody a sin. So spirit of envy, spirit of pornography, spirit of anger, spirit of hate, spirit of rage, spirit of whatever, and you can go down the list. And there's different categories, like spirits of heaviness, for example, include spirits of sadness, spirits of depression, spirits of suicide, and so on. So that's the difference. Now, back to oppression. Oppression is if you have a demonic or a spirit that's attached to you, which means that it is heavily influencing you in extreme ways, but you still have free will. A possession means that you don't have free will over your mind or over your body or both. Now, there is such a thing as a partial possession, which means that your body can be possessed, but you're still you still have faculties where you're present. You know what's going on. In a full possession, the person isn't there, like completely isn't there. But in a partial possession, it's like you're a POW, a prisoner of war. You're captive, and you're not making the decisions completely. You don't have control over your body. It's being controlled, but you're still on the inside. Like, think back in like a little closet somewhere where they've locked you, and that person is still there. Like, in some way, they may not be able to talk or they may be able to speak, but they probably can't. They can't have the free will to make a full decision over their body or their mind. So I hope that that helps a little bit in the definition. The next thing I just want to cover is I think it's really important to talk about just what to do and where to go, and just tools and tips. Now, there's other parts of this site, other videos that I've posted in the past, whether it's about prayers. There's a good prayer page that basically has a lot of listings of different prayers that you can pray, warfare prayers, ways that you can help. But here are some top ways that you can help. You need exorcised items. You need exorcised holy water, exorcised blessed oil, and exorcised salt. That will absolutely help either you, like I said, if it's a possession, it's probably a family member that's reaching out because the person's probably growling or speaking in other languages or not able to speak at all. Or it may seem that they're in some, psychotic episode where they're seeing things or they're catatonic or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's so many different manifestations of what this looks like. But these blessed items are a huge help. A great help for a person who is oppressed or possessed would be to pour the blessed salt, the exorcised salt, into a hot bath, a warm bath, and put that person in the bath. And again, like, if they're possessed or if they're heavily oppressed, if it's very bad, you probably should have somebody with them. They shouldn't be necessarily unattended, depending on what it is. If it's a spirit of rage, they're not going to do anything. But if it's a spirit of suicide, you don't want to leave them in an unattended bathtub, for example. And I'm just going through all the cases that I've had over all the years. There's so many different ways again that this can happen, but there is hope and there definitely is healing, and you know, knowing how to fight and knowing what to do is the key. And one of the things that really upsets me is that there aren't enough teachings on this. There aren't enough people talking about on this and giving tools to help people that are going through this, you know. It's like, oh, well, you have to contact a priest. Well, yes, of course, and you want to go to your bishop and you want to petition if they're possessed for an exorcism, of course, but that takes time. You know, there has to be approvals, there has to be a psychiatric evaluation, and it can go quite quickly, but you still need to know what to do in the meantime. So prayers are, of course, extremely helpful. One thing that would be very good would be to constantly play Gregorian chants in the house of the person that's going through this. That would be very helpful. I mean, even all night long, playing the Bible app. Download a Bible app or play it online, and just let the Psalms play nonstop. Let specific ones like Psalm 91 or Ephesians 6:13-20, like those types of specific Bible verses are extra helpful. But all Bible is good Bible. Playing the rosary is a good one, or saying the rosary over a person, or having that person say a rosary. Obviously, like if the person can get to confession as often as possible, that is or if the person can't leave the house, if a priest can come to the house on a sick call to do that, to do an anointing of the sick would be very helpful. If they're not able to do anything yet, you obviously, like, I do think that there's not enough priests and deacons and such that are even truly understanding in this area, and that know the amazing power and gifts that they even have, and the authority that they have, and how to stand on it, or even potentially like what symptoms to see, and being able to decipher the difference and to discern whether it's psychological, mental, or whether it is spiritual. So these are all things that I just wanted to mention. If you have questions and you want to reach out, you can reach out in the comments section. I'll try and answer what I can. If it's a very severe case, obviously, I can try and connect you with your diocese, your bishop, try and find out who is in your area that can help. But I also want to give a lot of credit to not for exorcisms, but for deliverance and for oppressions. I want to give the Unbound team a shout out. They have places all over the country. Unbound, Neil Lozano. There's priests like Father Rippinger, who I know is doing amazing work in the exorcism field. However, I think he kind of closes off the doors to other organizations and people that are helping. And I definitely disagree with that, because scripture is very clear. If they're for me and not against me, they're for me, and not to stop them if they're casting out in my name. So I think that's very important. And I think if you're a parent, that you also have authority over your children to be able to help them in that area. Now, obviously, it's very important to mention that you cannot ever, this is very important, you cannot ever tread on someone's free will. And what I mean by that is, please, no one, even a priest, no one, just don't go around like casting out spirits out of somebody, because, and I know that it was done, there's a place in the Bible where somebody has a spirit of divination, and Paul goes and just rips it out of the person. And I actually have seen that done, but it's usually when the person and I believe that Paul probably knew this, because he was so gifted and he was so called and so close. But there's a very important thing of spiritual authority, and the enemy can only act when he has spiritual authority. So for an example, I had a case a handful of years ago where a girl reached out to me, and she had a friend who was just put into a mental institution, but she said that, she saw something. She knew she saw something with this person. She knew that it wasn't psychological. And then I prayed about it. She sent me some information on him, and I knew for sure that it wasn't. But I was able to, through discernment and through prayer, find out what the problem was, which was he actually had photos on his phone of a girl that he had sexually sinned with, and the possession was actually coming from this girl. Like, she was doing that to him. She was controlling him. It's absolutely an incredible story. But the thing was, he had to, I couldn't have gone in, or I couldn't have even, a priest could not have gone in and been like, taken the demons out. They would have just gone back and they would have taken all their friends with them, like the Bible says, because the person had not confessed that and was also still in that sin by holding on to those pictures. So there was a soul tie with those pictures. A person has to want to be free. You have to know that that person, and Jesus was very clear about that in the Bible. He always asked, do you want to be free? Do you want to be healed? He pretty much always asked, I mean, he read hearts too, so he probably knew without asking. But I mean, he did know without asking, not probably. But oftentimes I think when he asked people, it was because he needed their confirmation, because he knew that their hearts were not wanting that healing or not wanting that freedom, not willing to give up that sin. So he would ask for them to then come forward so that he could do the healing, because you cannot do it without having the authority to do so. So you can pray over a person, but you can't just cast out stuff that has a legal authority and right to be in that person. And that goes for you yourself. If you're praying these prayers, you have to make sure that you don't have open doors, and that you have gone to confession, and that you have cut out, a sin that is leaving an open door that is causing this problem. And getting to the heart of that problem, of course, is what experts in the field, like myself and like priests, like we all have different giftings. Priests are doing the casting out. I'm more of a discernment person of knowing what the problem is and being able to help to get them along the path to be able to close those doors. But again, so some other things that can help, the Stations of the Cross prayers, if you can pray those as often, daily, or if it's a family member, if the family member is praying that. I know that you need to be in the church for the ultimate ability, but you are allowed to do the Stations of the Cross if you're too sick to go to the Stations of the Cross. And you can still have the benefits of it by being at home. I'm trying to think what else I've seen help so much. I mean, awareness is very important as well, because if it's somebody that's doing something to you, and you know that someone is demonically harming you, witchcraft, devil worship, it's all the same, black magic, voodoo, whatever they're practicing against you, a main component is that you need to make sure that they don't have any access to you directly. And I don't just mean that you're not seeing them in person. I mean, there's no phone conversations. There's no emails. There's no text messages. That's a big, important point, is that if you had text messages between you and this person that's doing that, they're using that connection in the physical world to have the spiritual connection that they need to be able to get in and do those things. It's not always through necessarily through sin. It can just be from having the actual personal connection to have more power and more influence. Now, I'm a huge advocate in general of daily spiritual warfare prayers. I do them first thing in the morning. I do them at night. I highly recommend them. I recently heard some saying that they don't do them because they get backlash for them. I don't understand this. I'm not saying you wouldn't get backlash. I'm saying if I get backlash, I go 10 times harder, because that means that there is something there and I'm zeroing in on it and I'm defeating it. And whatever it is isn't going to leave me alone or stop bothering me without a fight. So to me, I don't take a backlash opposition as a reason to stop, unless this is very important too. Everyone is at different levels in their spiritual journey. So I could understand a priest or pastor, or just in general someone saying that it's not good for a person to pray them, because if they're not spiritually prepared to pray them, they don't know how to fight. They're basically in the ring with Mike Tyson, but they boxed one day in their entire life. They're going to get obliterated. So I can understand that mentality. But again, I think it's important to know your enemy. The other thing is the church is so rich with books on this subject. I'm a huge advocate, and St. Gemma's Diary, which we were just talking about, I was talking about with someone yesterday, is absolutely powerful, read that either you or a family member, whoever needs to have this information can read it. Saint Gemma Galgani, if you read anything on Saint Padre Pio, it's just very comforting to know that this has happened to others, and that it can also happen to very, very holy people. It's not like the enemy is just coming after. My understanding is that Mother Teresa actually had an exorcism done shortly before her death, as well, because when you're sick and you're dying and you're weak. I mean, I go in to help people. I've helped people in hospitals, and there's just so much demonic warfare in there because people are getting close to death, and that's talked about in many saints' book. That I forget which saint it was, that 10,000 demons went into that person's cell to tempt him before he died. So when you're weak, your prayers are weaker, you're exhausted, you're sick, you don't feel well. You're powerful in the sense that you have a lot to offer up to the Lord, but you don't quite have the focus, and your body's weaker, and the enemy just loves to attack the body. He loves to attack the mind, but he also attacks people's bodies now. But again, we are powerful in Christ. We have all the tools that we need. It's not that they don't exist, that Jesus didn't provide them. And it's not that, he doesn't want to take care of us or protect us, but he gave us all these tools. We actually have to use them. It's like if you're going into war, you don't, or you're a police officer, you don't go in without your bulletproof vest, or you don't go in without your gun, or you can't just like hang out in the wind and hope for the best. Like, that's not how we do it. I mean, it is important to be strong soldiers in that case, and to learn. And so a lot of the saints, the mystic saints and the saints that went through demonic warfare, are a great way to get into the understanding, know thy enemy, so to speak, right? I think that that's all that well, obviously, no, of course I want to share. I mean, I would think this would be known, but going to mass as often as possible. And if you're sick, having someone bring you communion as often as possible, because there is nothing, I repeat, there is nothing on this earth that is more powerful against the enemy than the Eucharist. There is nothing. There are many other things that are. The Bible is a close second. These are my personal experiences of what I went head to head with on the devil for all that time when those devil worshipers were against me. And it's like the Eucharist was number one. The sacraments in general, obviously confession, but the order of them was the Eucharist, the Bible, and then there was like a group of things that worked. Well, obviously, like the rosary is just the absolute strongest prayer. Our Lady is so powerful against the enemy. But after that, relics of the saints were very helpful. Holy water was extremely helpful. Blessed oil. Now, something else regarding exorcised oil versus exorcised water is that different demons, you probably don't know but evil spirits, demons, whichever, some are only affected by one or the other. Like certain types are only affected by oil, and some are only affected by water. And I've never really dove into why that was true. I've just seen it so many times, but I think logically it follows that it's because they're spirits of air, fire, water, ground, underground, the netherworld. So it depends on their origin of what would harm and hurt them the most. I think that should give you it's almost like a crash course starter kit that you may be online this Christmas being like, how do I help my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter? Somebody's growling at me, somebody's going nuts and making, no sense. I think people do know the difference between whether it's spiritual or whether it's, like a human problem. And I still fully believe that all physical, all mental, emotional, all of those issues have a spiritual component to them. And it's all just about open doors in the spirit. Demons often want to get into a wound. That's how it's originally a wound. And then the sin The enemy gets into that wound and then creates a sin, and then the demon is allowed to come in to make a home there. Like the strong man has to come into your house, and he has to be able to come in, and then he binds you up and such. So I hope this video helps whoever this needs to help. Again, if you have questions, please post them. People post a lot. I think my most popular video is the one on cursed items. And again, I will again preface this: the Lord is all powerful. Nothing happens. He is in absolute control. Nothing happens without his will. Now, we have free will. So some of these things that are happening, they're not his will. He doesn't want to, but he gives permissive will, okay, because of our free will. And sometimes he allows it for the glory of God. I mean, I truly believe that some of what I went through all those years ago was for my own purification, but also for my own learning and understanding and growth, to be able to be around all these experts so that I could help so many people after that. I mean, it was part of my journey to be able to do this. Again, I also have a lot of referrals of the people you do need to get to: your diocese, your bishop, your pastors in your area, spiritual warfare ministries in your area that can help you. There's even online, so don't worry if you're like way out in the middle of nowhere. There are organizations who actually can do a Zoom with you. You can get healed through that. You absolutely can. And again, it depends on the level that we're at. Are we in oppression? Are we in a partial possession? Are we in a full possession? Those are all very different things, very different methods, and very different levels of like how high up you need to be able to handle that particular thing. And again, it's all Jesus doing it. It's not us. We don't have any power. Jesus has all the power. But what I mean is there's people that are at higher levels of understanding how it works, and to not run into, like I was talking about before, if you don't have spiritual authority, you cannot do certain things. That's going to come back on you because those demons have the right to be there. So you try to take away a demon from something that has legal authority, it's allowed to come at you because you didn't have the right to do that. So God is so good, and he will also give answers, answers through prayer and through fasting. I suggest that you fast? I think it's good to have people fast for the person that is going through that. I don't think it's good for that person to fast because they're already probably so weak from it. You don't want to pile anything else on top of that person. I think fasting of somebody who is already in that state is just, it's just definitely not a good idea. They could fast in the sense of giving up like something that they really love, but I have a feeling if somebody's going through that, they've probably already given up so much of what they love. They've probably been stripped of, they probably don't have much left at this point. I hope that this has been helpful. Maybe somebody that is in need as well. God bless you guys. Hope that your Christmas is not like this. But if it is, I hope that this brings you some comfort and some, help so that you can feel like you're not helpless, because you're not. God is with you. He's never leaving you. Okay. Thanks so much. This is Nicole Abyssinian. Bye-bye.